Hey guys, Cool Blown Way Back. I'm Rick.
I'm Maggie.
And we're here with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex second gig. Last time on Individual 11 is still a thing. They're investigating. Goda, I don't know whose side he's on. I feel much like I felt with the Laughing Man, where I feel like I understand 10% of what's going on. 90% I have no idea. But I feel like Section 9 has 50% no idea what's going on. I feel like this is definitely a show I'm going to appreciate more on my second watch through.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. We learned more about Goda last time. Mm-hmm. His interesting paper when he was a student about cyber brains wanting collectivity. Mm-hmm. And it really makes it seem like he's some sort of if he is who he says and not like someone else pretending to be him or something. I don't know. It's a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
I don't believe anything that comes out of his face.
See if we get any answers. Whew. Felt like my pencil was catching on fire.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff.
But I think I caught most of it. I definitely have, I feel like, all my answers now.
Yeah.
As to what's happening. So, we were right, I think, in that the Individual 11 is
being manipulated into position.
Yeah, the refugees are being made into this enemy that, like, the Japanese people can unify and fight against.
Yeah.
And the purpose of it is very simply, that's what Goda thinks that society wants, and he wants to fulfill society's wishes. So he's like doom scrolling through Twitter. He's like, well, I got work to do.
Better. He's feeding the trolls. Why? Oh.
But he's also part of the trolls on Twitter as well. Like, that seems like part of his game too, this counter information. Mm-hmm. Like, just trying to put things out there to rile the public, rile the refugees against the Japanese and the Japanese against the refugees. A lot of... Sorry.
Is there, like, historical proof that that sort of action will 100% always go the way of the government?
Propaganda?
Oh, no, of, like... I mean, he's playing the refugees against the locals, the government.
Sure. I mean...
Does it always go that way?
It works surprisingly often. I mean, that's like, man, that's the whole reason Sparta existed for as long as it did. Of like its second-class citizens that greatly outnumbered them have had it and still, unfortunately, do have it to an extent with blacks in this country. I mean, the Germans and the Russians against one another in World War II.
I mean, yeah, you also find relationships based on hatred going back to generations in probably all areas of the world.
The Jews always, like Edward I, he was given the pat on the back by the Pope and considered extremely pious because he exiled all the Jews from England.
And took their money. Mm-hmm. That's usually the reason why most stuff happens. Which it's happening here too, right? Like most of the time.
I mean, like, you see it kind of in the Brexit situation as well.
But like, where's the money in this situation? In this situation, where's the money?
Well, I mean, the money in the U.S. or
no, I'm in the show.
In the show? Well, I
real
imagine,
life's too depressing to talk about.
But I imagine it's kind of like real life as well, where people got in trouble for raising money for the wall, you know, when that money was not going to the wall, or it wasn't going to what it should have been going to. Like, there's people who are profiting from the fear, who have no interest in fixing the problem, but just taking the money and running. So, like, it sounded like one of the things that was bombed here was a function like that, to raise money against, you know, to support political opponents against the refugees. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, I mean, as long as there's fear, there will be money. because people will pay money in order to keep themselves safe from whatever it is that they fear. And there will always be people to exploit that.
That's from like the government, the country side of things. But what are they getting? Like,
no, I don't think that is from the government. I think that's...
No, the people, like the people that live in the country, the local side of things, basically.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to get from the refugees other than just having this straw man to beat up and set fire to and be like, we are a collective now against them?
Well, yeah, I mean, the refugees are the thing to be feared.
That's it? That's all they...
Yep.
Then what were they digging up in the refugee section?
That was just another thing to rile the refugees to action, I think. They are exposing that they put the refugees on top of this unsafe nuclear reactor.
You don't have to say they put them on top of an unsafe, like, location. Have you seen those buildings? None of them should be standing. Like, none of that, like, it doesn't look like could possibly have water, electricity, basic necessities. There's probably so much like contamination. Like, sure, it's not radioactive, but there's plenty of things that can kill you that aren't radioactive.
I think it's two-part. One, it's that, but the other, maybe more significant part of that is, oh no, what if the refugees get a hold of what basically amounts to an atomic bomb
underneath them, basically? Yeah, possibly. But maybe we are also thinking about this slightly kind of because, I mean, we're Americans. The idea of land being valuable is kind of a little silly to us just because there's so freaking much of it. There's places where you can go for, you know, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. And it's like just empty land. But land is actually way more valuable in Japan.
Sure.
Is it possible that this is also like a little bit connected to that? Just like the fear that suddenly they'll have like, you know, a separate thing?
I mean, land is very premium in like New York City and things. Like there's certainly places in America where land is a premium. But yeah, like this is not the first show that I've seen deal with this sort of idea of creating a country inside of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The other show, it was for a much different reason. But yeah, I mean, it's...
Because there's not much of Japan to go around.
There's not.
And it just...
And I mean, you know, we did not... The North did not want to let the South secede.
Yeah, but like, I'm also thinking about like, okay, it's like... the land that is America didn't always belong to the United States government and all the citizens thereof. Like the Native Americans and such were, you know, just gently shuffled off into smaller and smaller and less appealing and less important and tinier bits of land continuously. Have the refugees been dealing with that sort of stuff too? I mean, Japan agreed to take these people in.
That they've been necessarily, it's just that they've been in limbo. Like
for so long.
Yeah, some tax dollars seem to be going to them for the absolute bare necessity of existence, I think.
But they're not given opportunities to actually improve their own lot.
Yeah, they're not given citizenship. They
can't work.
Some of them were getting jobs, but that seems like that's going to be shut off now.
Not to mention, you're having to basically give up your entire body.
Yeah.
So, what you have is a giant population of people that are extremely desperate. And whether they like it or not, like the people that aren't refugees, it's like you've got to know that like the people they're not, it doesn't look nice over there.
Yeah, but
like they can see it.
Yeah, but
and I think that would be even more reason to fear them. It's like when you think to yourself, like, how could I live like that? And it's like, it'd be terrible. Like I couldn't. And then you think about the people that are, and you're like, oh my gosh.
I think your mistake is you're thinking that they're thinking of them as people. Like, I think they see them as a problem, not as people.
I'm trying to figure out ways of like breaking that cycle of hatred that Goda has started. Because it just short term you try to think of like, well, what could possibly happen? Sure, something big might happen that could like sway public favor. I'm very interested to see how it could possibly be pulled off, because that sort of, once that cycle gets going and it's been going long enough, the only way to stop it is very, very slowly. And you have to like start from the literal ground up by teaching people and kids and like everyone, just, you know, a flow of communication. Having the two sides so isolated.
Yeah. And I mean, prosperity can go a long way as well.
Yeah.
Like, you normally get this kind of thing, not always, but normally when resources are scarce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, or when they're perceived to be scarce, when like the people in power are being challenged in some way, and so they need to distract from themselves.
Yeah.
Put it
So
elsewhere.
refugees, like our freaking representative.
But there's a bunch of other interesting stuff in this one as well, I think. The idea that, like, the ghost assumes the form of the body. So Goda, inside of this AI, looks like the Goda in the real world. Like that idea where if you have a ghost and your avatar looks like you. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, like, when they can create a character in games, there's a lot of people who make themselves look as close to themselves as possible, but maybe a more idealized version.
I remember when I was really, really little, I thought I was blonde.
When I was really, really little, I was. And then
I've never been blonde. I've always had very dark hair. But, like, I just remember having this impression, like, of myself that I was blonde. And, like, the face didn't match at all. It's like I didn't know my own face, and so I just had this made-up, like, image of myself in my own head. I remember that. I remember when I finally saw myself in the mirror, and I was very disappointed. Like, no red lips, no blonde, like, we're talking, like, the whole, like, flowing locks
Who would you
thing.
even have seen that was blonde?
I mean, movies. I think it was slightly based off of Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit's not blonde.
No, but, like, she had that, I was always really drawn to the red, especially, like, her red lips and such. It's like, whoa, I want that. As a wee child with barely any sense of self, I guess. But the fact that the ghost changed after the damage sounded like he basically said he had, you know, either a emotionally traumatic event or brain damage.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Depending on whether it falls on the side of what's deemed good or evil, like, you either have a mental breakdown or you have an epiphany, right?
Yeah.
So either he's in the wrong and he's completely lost it, or he isn't, and he's a genius.
Because he thinks that society needs to be built on the backs of
There's another movie I want
the
to
outsiders.
talk about that relates to this, but I shouldn't because it's spoilers. God damn it.
I mean, that's the problem, though. Like, we can think of tons and tons of examples of a horrible situation like this.
Well, I meant specifically, like, a villain who's trying to create a hero by doing terrible things, basically. If you know the movie, you know the movie.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I read a paper or a book on this, but it's been so long I can't really remember. But like the idea of, like, common traits or characteristics at, like, a national level.
Mm-hmm.
So they said here, like, humility, Goda thinks, is the chief aspect of the Japanese people.
Yeah.
I really wish I could remember even what that book was.
I remember you talking about that.
Like, I remember America had 3. One of them was, like, I can't think of the word, but, like, the need for exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the others. Should have took notes.
Maybe it was, like, I don't know.
I probably did.
Self-expression or something like that, rather than...
It could
Japan's very, like, well, Japan is very collective.
Yeah, I mean, I always want to be very careful about being generic when it comes to people. But
I mean, I find most of those traits are things to aspire to, though. Like, I would... The idea of, like, people caring so much for their community that they take care of it so lovingly.
sure.
Living in a society like that sounds very appealing.
Students doing the janitorial work in schools.
Yeah, like some of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a bit more of that here. But things like, you know, in Japan, conformity, like not wanting to stand out, like that.
Not wanting to state your own opinion.
Like that can be a good thing or a bad thing. It's just in extremes, I think.
Yeah.
In different situations.
Because I definitely think like some of the Americanized like traditional traits can be taken to extreme.
What
Absolutely.
would you consider some of them to be?
I'm not sure. I remember, I think it was something like, I don't know like what the exact word for it was, but I think it was something along the lines of self-expressionism. Basically like needing to set yourself apart from others.
The opposite of conformity?
Yeah.
Sure.
The need to stand out from others and, I don't know, succeed past others.
Oh yeah, one of them was like the ingrained idea that a person has control over their own fortune, right?
Yeah, that.
So like if a person works hard enough, then they'll become rich.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like that's something.
Any of us can be millionaires.
Yeah, that's something that is.
If you're smart.
Is done, you know, not exclusively, but mostly through merit, which tends to not be the case.
At all. Like, hardly at all.
A lot of times, but that was one of them as well. And I can't for the life of me remember the third one. I'll try to look it up in between. Or in the coming weeks.
It's hard though, because like those things can all be weaponized. It seems like, because like I mean, if everyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, then there's no need for social programs to help the.
Well, the poor because they're lazy.
Or they're they're lazy or they're stupid or something like that.
Because they're lazy and we should keep our money.
They're taking advantage of the rest of us. Right.
Yeah, really interesting episode. Really has tied the season together for me. I feel like I have a much better understanding of what's going on now. The same thing happened last season with The Laughing Man, where I was like, I don't get it. I feel so dumb. Explain it to me, Ghost. And then it did.
I mean, we had all the threads. Great. It just tied them.
Yeah, it did.
So that's a good show.
Good stuff. Let's get to the next one. Thank you guys for watching us watch Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex second gig. What an episode. Really is tying things together. I can't wait to see where it continues to go from here.
I need to know how they solve this.
So let's get there. Subscribe so you can catch it as it comes out. Bye, guys.